Hey everybody, how's it going? Been a long time, been a while. Into 2023 came and went. 2024 is here. I actually have been trying to do this video for a while now. It's been a couple weeks. So had some issues with recording on my phone, so I've just been trying to figure that out. So I wanted to do a video on kind of the books I read last year, and especially look at maybe the top 5, like my top 5 picks from the year. So I read about 25 books over the course of last year, and some of them, many of them by authors I'd never read before. So I enjoyed all these books. I liked them all. So I might briefly go through kind of the list, and I'm happy to answer questions in the comments or anything like that. So if you want to know about any of these other books here, but I will talk about the top 5. So let's jump into it. This is a subset of books I read last year that are, I guess, maybe horror, I guess you could say, for most of them. And none of these are in my top 5, but I thought I'd just kind of group them together just to give you a look at it. So 2 of them are kind of what I would call classic literature, right? Classic horror literature, Jekyll and Hyde, and then The Turn of the Screw. Just classic stuff that I had never read before, and so I read it this year. Read it back in October. Really cool. Jekyll and Hyde was interesting. I mean, there's so many things that have sort of stemmed from that, and just the fact that it's Robert Louis Stevenson is fascinating to me. But Turn of the Screw was cool. If you're into that, it really gives you that as the like Victorian horror vibes, and it kind of comes across, and horror. Okay, not really horror. It's more like a ghost story, but spooky, and it gives those Victorian sort of creepy kids, and I think a lot of it's because of the language. Like, this book was written in, I don't even know what year. I'd have to look, but a long time ago, 1800s, I guess. And this is the Folio Society edition that I read. But yeah, you can see like the little creepy kids in the window. You got like a candle, but the language that's used, the words that are used in here, they're first published in 1898. So there you go. And the language used it's kind of that boring Victorian-esque language, but it works here because it kind of sets the mood, it sets the tone. So anyway, I've said enough about that, but this is another just classic. Read Hex. Hex is super interesting. It's got, it's unlike any, any horror book that I've read before. It's got this very cool take on sort of a modern, like witch, basically like a witch / ghost story. And of course, this is the Suntup Editions books. Fantastic, great art. Actually, there's a picture in here that just, if I can find it really quick, that's just like nightmare fuel. Well, there's several that are nightmare fuel. Really good stuff. But yeah, it's creepy. It's creepy. You got a witch's ghost that's got her eyes and mouth sewn shut, and she just kind of runs around this city and goes wherever she wants to, and everybody just acts normal. And it's set like in modern times. So they're like drinking Starbucks, and they have this ghost of a witch that's like just there. So anyway, really cool. Read The Exorcist for the first time this year. Again, there's another Suntup edition. Really nice production. Exorcist is awesome. I really enjoyed the book. I like the movies, but I was never like crazy for The Exorcist. But like the book itself, very good, very well written. Enjoyed this a lot. Could see myself rereading it. Let's see here. Okay, Boys in the Valley. So Philip Fracassi, a new author. I mean, maybe not a new author, new to me for sure. Really enjoyed this though. Boys in the Valley is cool. It's like this. It's like an orphanage, I guess. Basically, takes place in an orphanage. It's like out in the middle of nowhere, and there's snow, and there's these boys that are studying in like the seminary, and then there's basically a demon that gets loose, and then some of the boys are it's kind of like, is it Lord of the Flies? I'm thinking of where it's kind of clicky, right? And it's like you got some that are kind of going, a little crazy, a little spooky, right? Like you got to go outside and use the outhouse, but there's some guys out there that are a little questionable, and you're kind of scared, and they're in the barn, and it's good though. Philip Fracassi though, there's several other books by him that I'm looking forward to reading this year. So very good stuff. And Dark Matter, I don't know that it's really horror. I mean, it's probably more like sci-fi. But I really love this book. This Blake Crouch is the first Blake Crouch book I read, and it's very cool. It's a very good book. Enjoyed this a lot. It kind of plays with quantum physics and alternate realities, stuff like that. So if that's interesting to you, this book, I mean, it reads very well, very fast too. I mean, it was very action-packed, very quick read. I probably plowed through this thing in like 2 days. So yeah, there you go. Whoops. Okay, should have included this one with that group as well of horror books. Stephen King, Duma Key. So this is probably going to be crazy to a lot of you. This is my first Stephen King book. I tried to read like Salem's Lot when I was in high school probably, and I think I just got bored with it. And so I was recommended this book, read it, loved it. This book is so good. It actually after reading Hex, I read this book after Hex, and there were things that happened in Hex, certain plot lines and ideas that I am almost certain that author read Duma Key and kind of pulled some of those ideas. And frankly, I think they're done better in Duma Key. But I mean, it's Stephen King. Come on, the dude's written like 10,000 books, so of course, you know, the execution's gonna be there. But really fascinating, really interesting story. Really like this book. Yeah, so Duma Key. I'm gonna read several more Stephen King books this year. So yeah, throw me a comment on what Stephen King books I should check out. I mean, I know, you know, Misery, It, The Shining. I've seen the movie, but haven't read the book. So let me know which one I should read first. Second, I guess. This was first, and it was great. All right, just a few more before we get to the top 10. So one that's not pictured here because I lent it out to my father-in-law and don't have it back yet, was Project Hail Mary. That book was really cool. And like a sci-fi book, and the guy's got amnesia. He wakes up, he is in a spaceship in the middle of outer space, and the two people in the spaceship with him are dead husks, and he doesn't know why he's there, where he is, what's going on. And it's it's a great book, really interesting. I felt like, if you've ever read The Martian, like the things that I enjoyed about The Martian, where it's like really technical and really like in the details of how do you grow a potato and how many calories you have to eat, and you know, the specifics of oxygen content and all that stuff, like really cool, really interesting, really immerses you, makes you feel like it's real, really happening. In Project Hail Mary, it felt like there were things that were described in that level of detail, you know, in the beginning of the book, and that was great. But then it was like in the second half of the book, that same thing's happening and it's still being explained at that level of detail. And I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, it's complicated, but you've thought out the details, so I get it. But with that aside, it was a great book. And then let's see, I got my Equal Rights, Terry Pratchett. This is my first Terry Pratchett book. So again, it's almost embarrassing to admit, you know, I'm 33 years old and I've never read Terry Pratchett, you know, or Stephen King. But there it is. Okay, I'm fessing up to it. I'm owning up to it. But you know what? I'm taking steps to improve myself. I'm trying to be better. I'm reading it, okay? And I love this book. This was Equal Rights. I mean, there's a ton of Discworld books to choose from. Hard to pick a place to start, I think. Did this one and really, really liked it a lot. I love his voice, the humor he uses. I mean, that's to me what shines through with Terry Pratchett so well, is like he doesn't take himself too seriously, and that voice and that humorous voice of the author really comes through. So that's inspiring to me, and I think it's really good and really entertaining. And it's like these kind of fantasy tropes that you know, we all know and love, and then kind of some of them get turned on their head. So they were great. And then the last three that I've got here before we get into the top 10. This is 3 of the secret projects from Brandon Sanderson. So Sunlit Man, did a video. I actually did a video on all these guys, except Frugal Wizard, which actually Frugal Wizard was kind of near the bottom of my list, of my list of 25 books I read this year. It just wasn't, you know, it was fine. It was entertaining. Just for me, all these other books kind of beat it out, honestly. So yeah, if you want more detail on these guys, I did another video on them. You can check it out. But I mean, generally speaking, Brandon Sanderson is like top tier. I mean, you can't go wrong. If you haven't read Brandon Sanderson's stuff before, I highly recommend it. Recommend you jump right into that. All right. Here's what everybody's been waiting for. I think I said top 5 earlier. I lied. You get top 10, okay? Number 10. Howl's Moving Castle. This book was so fun. This is a Folio Society edition. It's like really, really light. I mean, compared to some of this other stuff, really lighthearted. It's almost like actually, that's going to be a theme among some of these books in my top 10. That they're almost like fairy tales, almost like just really lighthearted, like children's type stories. But and some of them are children's stories, and some of them are kind of children's stories geared toward adults. But your classic, like really fun, lighthearted witch, and a wizard, and a talking fireplace, and falling stars, and just like 7 league boots that you wear and go. Just really fun. Really enjoyed it. Also, I'm probably biased toward this because when my daughter was born, actually last January, that's when I read this. So we were at the hospital reading this. So it was a really fun time, really exciting time, and so this book is sort of imprinted for me because of that. In a positive light, in a positive context. So I also I did a little inscription. I'm not going to share it here really, but I did an inscription in here to my daughter on her birthday, her actual birthday. So that is kind of neat. Okay, that was number 10, Howl's Moving Castle. All right, number 9 is A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. I absolutely love this book. There are more in the series I haven't read yet. This one was super fun. I think I read that this was Ursula K. Le Guin's take on sort of a young Merlin character, kind of, what might his childhood have been like, and kind of the, maybe that inspired it. So it's based in an archipelago. It's a story of young Ged, Sparrowhawk, kind of starts off in a small village, kind of saves the village. This kind of old wiser wizard kind of comes, takes him under his wing, apprentices him, and there's this, it's all about sort of ambition and kind of pushing your limits too far, and then kind of having to face down that shadow within. I mean, there's a cool scene in here that's really vivid in my mind where Ged has stolen his master's spell book, and he's in, by like candlelight, he's kind of reading his master's away. And he like opens the book to sort of read some of these more advanced spells he's not ready for yet, and I think he gets like basically pulled into it and like can't stop reading, or catches a glimpse of something. I mean, it's really creepy. And then there's like this description of sort of the doorway behind him, a shadow building and a darkness there, and it kind of slips into the room, and there's like this presence that has sort of been summoned, and it's now with him, and that kind of follows him throughout the book, and he has to figure that out. So really great book, really fun, interesting, like the way dragons are treated. They're almost like pests in this world, it seemed like. Like if one of the little islands has a dragon problem, they call a wizard to come in and take care of it, and they do so. And it's very cool. Yeah, so Wizard of Earthsea. All right, number 8 is, I don't have a copy of it, sorry, I lent it out to my brother-in-law. It's Babel, B-A-B-E-L, Babel, however you want to say it, by R.F. Kuang. That was an awesome book, very cool. First book I've read by that author as well. It's sort of this like, it's sort of like this alternate history, where, there's magic. The magic system's very cool. It's set in London or Britain, I don't know, the UK. London, I think, is that where like Oxford is? Anyway, I'm just ignorant, forgive me. But basically the magic system is all about like silver, and so and translation, it's very cool, hence Babel, right? The Tower of Babel, and all the languages of the world, and translation, and a really cool magic system. I'm trying to think of how to even describe it. Basically, if you've got a word in English and that same word in Chinese, for example, or not the same word, but I mean the term that's used in the Chinese language for that idea. They're going to mostly be the same, but there's going to be something that gets lost in translation, basically some sort of meaning or context to that word that one culture has that the other doesn't, right? And so when you have a translator, somebody who's fully fluent in both languages, and they write those two words they inscribe it into silver, a silver bar, the magic effect that takes place, that happens, is that little piece that was lost in translation. I mean, just that idea alone, I don't even have to say anything else about the book. That idea alone, awesome. That is so interesting. Such a cool magic system. I mean, your imagination can just run wild with that by itself. And then you mix the characters in that book. I mean, you really, Kwong, fantastic. I mean, high praise, because you read these characters, and I mean, you really feel for these characters. You like them. There's some you really don't like. The development that happens is fantastic, and it's so good. It's just such a great book. It's very interesting, or thought-provoking, and it's sort of got the kind of pieces of the real world and real sort of that imperial England, right? And kind of going out and taking over different parts of the world and kind of putting their influence there and power there. Just super good. So check out Babel. Check it out if you haven't. Okay. Number 7 is The Warded Man. This is a Grim Oak edition. It's fantastic. Grim Oak is such a cool publisher. And yes, this book as well, it follows kind of maybe 3 main characters, and it starts in their childhood, and that's super interesting. I mean, it really starts at the very beginning for each one of them, and you see them kind of progress through the book into who they are. And I enjoyed every one of those characters. That's something I've found, I guess, as I've kind of matured as a reader, as a human being, as a person, gotten older. My tastes have improved, I would say. I really enjoy the character work, the stuff that these authors can do, and really pull you in and make you care for a character is just so interesting to me. And just the family dynamics and kind of relationships that they have, and all that stuff really pulls me in, and that's done really well here. So this is Peter Brett, The Warded Man. This is book 1 of the Demon Cycle. And I think book 2 is getting published. They're all out. I think there's 5 of them. But Grim Oak is going to publish book 2, I think, The Desert Spear, this year. So that's going to be cool. I'm excited for that. And this is another really cool magic system, another really cool world. Basically, you've got these demons that come out after sunset, and they're gone at sun up, and they are vicious, brutal, and at the beginning of the book, there's really no way to fight them. I mean, you're just people live in these little huts, and just don't go out after dark. You've got these wards, so that's why The Warded Man. You've got these runes that the people remember from maybe some an era previously where there was more technology or more knowledge that the humans had, and now they don't, but they do still have some of these runes. Not many, but enough to kind of protect their houses and stuff. Unless a scratch or something or one fades, and then it's a bad time, and you have families get gone, let's say. So good though. I mean, this is such a cool book. It's a really cool world, and I've not read any of the others in this cycle yet, so I'm looking forward to that this coming up year as well. And then 6, I already talked about it a little bit, was Duma Key. Number 6 for me. Very cool. It's a really, really interesting story. I mean, the basic premise of it is, I don't even want to just read it. I mean, I'm not even going to give you the details. It's a Stephen King book, Duma Key. It's just cool. And I think probably I'm a little biased toward it because, I kind of live in the construction industry, and the main character kind of comes from that world. So there's a lot, he's into art and painting, and basically suffers an injury at a job site, loses his arm, and then kind of in his attempt to kind of rehabilitate, and kind of get right in his own head, he goes off to Duma Key down in Florida and starts kind of painting again. And it's just so good. Duma Key's a creepy place. It's creepy. But I mean, it's yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how to really, I don't want to spoil anything. If you haven't read it, you should read it. Check it out. It's my number 6. If you have stuck with me this far, good for you. You've made it to the top 5, okay? Here's number 5, Piranesi. This is by Susanna Clark. This book is so good. It's little, it's quick. I mean, you can read this, you can read it quick, people, and you should. I went into this blind. I had no idea what it was going to be about, and that is exactly the way it should be. You need to go into it blind, have zero expectation. I'm just telling you, please pick this up, read it, okay? Check it out. Don't look up any spoilers. Don't try to find a plot summary, okay? Well, let's just see, what does the dust jacket say? No, it just sounds bizarre. It just sounds bizarre. You have to read it. You seriously have to read this. It's so good. It's such an interesting book, and you're gonna be like trying to figure out, I mean, from the very beginning of the book, you're gonna be like, what is going on? Where am I? Who is this person? Who's speaking? Who's the, you know, it's like written in, I forget the the word for it, but it's like written where, it's kind of like journal entries, right? Like the way Dracula's written, you know, date, you know, kind of a little something, and then an entry, so it's written like that, and it's so good. It really is. It's number 5 for a reason, people. Check it out. It's so interesting, just because of like that sense of like revelation, right? Like you're kind of solving things, you're figuring things out, kind of as the you know, the narrator is, and that's really fun. And yeah, this is like right up my alley. Very cool stuff. Number 4 is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This book is so good. It's so cool. It's kind of set in Barcelona, and you know, there's definitely like some kind of magic-ish like going on in the back, like it's not set in like the normal world, right, that we live in, but there's nothing that's like blatantly magic, right? There's nobody's riding on broomsticks, making potions, stuff like that, you know. But it's like the Cemetery of Forgotten Books is just such a cool place, such a cool idea. This is the Folio Society edition. It's got some great art in it, but I'm trying to think. There's a character in here, Fermin. This is like my favorite character. Fermin's fantastic. Daniel is like the main character, and you know, it kind of is like, it's got like these fairy tale ideas applied to like real, you know, what feels like real people in the real world, even though there is that little bit of magic. But and what I mean by the fairy tale ideas is like it's kind of got that thing where like everything's interconnected, you know, in a way that real life kind of really isn't. And so it's like, you know, you meet a character, and you know, you come to think of them one way, and then you find out that this book is all about like kind of intermingling these kind of storylines and these people's, you know, it's almost like this epic story, epic picture, a tapestry of many characters over kind of different timelines, a couple different, you know, decades apart, I guess, and sort of mixing them together. And it's really, I think it's like a love story, actually. I mean, if I had to pick one thing and to say what it was, I would say it's a love story. But it's a good one. It's a really good one, and it's really interesting, and it's not even, I mean, I almost hate even just throwing like one caption over it, right, to say like it's a love story, because there's so much more to it than just that. It almost scratches like a nostalgia itch, because it's you know, the main character is young when you first meet him, and it's kind of the way he thinks and the way he interacts with things, and thinks that something is, you know, such a big deal, or oh, this person is so important in my life, and this is like, you know, and then as they kind of grow up, that just kind of falls away, that kind of fades away, and it's like, it just wasn't the case, and that's, you know, I've moved on with my life, and there are more things going on, and that happens here, and it's sort of like this, it's like this microcosm of life, of the world, you know, with a little more magic and a little more, you know, a little bit more of that fairy tale kind of twist, and I think that's just a sign of a good book. It's just, there's a great quote in here. I mean, I gotta think of it. I gotta find it. It's basically that you don't get anything new out of a book. You know, when you read a book, you're like reading your own ideas. It's something to that effect, right? It's like not your own ideas. It's like when you. Oh, I gotta look it up. I gotta find it. It's good though, and it's like, you know, a book moves you or doesn't move you because what you really get out of it is this reflection kind of yourself, right? And it gives you insight into your own psyche and into your own, you know, into your own emotions, and that's not really on the page. It's just the way that we as human beings interact with a story and interact with the written word, and I just think that's a beautiful thing. It's part of why I think we all love books so much, and this one really captures that, and it really kind of, I don't know, it just evokes that in a very real way. So that's why it's number 4. Okay, there you go. It's great. It's a really great book, and there's more in this series. Haven't read those. I've only read this one, but I mean, it stands alone just fine, I would say. So check it out. Okay, I had to look it up. It was driving me nuts. I had to know what it was. So the quote was, "Books are mirrors. You only see in them what you already have inside you." And so I think that's just fantastic, and it's so it speaks to me. So I don't know, maybe it speaks to you guys too. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know. Give me a like and a subscribe if you agree. Okay, number 3, Neil Gaiman, Stardust. Here we go again. Embarrassing. Okay, I've never read any Neil Gaiman before. This is my first Neil Gaiman book. It's just absurd to even say. It's like this household name that, like, you know. Anyway, there it is. So, but read it now. Stardust. Such a great book. Very fun. It literally is. It's like a fairy tale that's written for adults, and it's just so interesting. The main character's name is Tristan Thorn. I mean, come on. It's just such a fun story. I mean, you could literally probably sit down and read this book in like one day, in one sitting. It's great. It's so interesting. It's just fun. It's a great, you know, it's got one of those classic storylines, right? Where you go out on an adventure thinking that you're looking for something, and you kind of find out that that's not even really the thing that you wanted to find at all, and you end up finding something totally different, that's even better. And it's a heartwarming story. It's got some, Neil Gaiman is such a great, I mean, I guess everybody already knew this, but now I know it too. He's a great author. Really love his voice. And actually, I did the audiobook on this. Neil Gaiman like reads it himself, which is super cool. It's really, really cool to hear the author read their own book. So that's cool. And yeah, it's got, I think part of the magic here is that Neil Gaiman does such a good job of like making the world feel so huge, right? The fairy realm feels enormous. It feels so strange, even though like on the page what's written, you know, obviously it's a finite amount of words. It's not that many words, but you know, there's just sort of the way things are presented. You get this, it's like an iceberg, right? I think I saw a Brandon Sanderson lecture where he talked about that. Like you want to imply that there's all this other part of the iceberg, even though that, you know, you're only showing the readers what's on top of the water. You want to imply there's a whole iceberg under the ocean. And I think, and Neil Gaiman's so great at that. And Stardust was just really fun, and I liked it a lot. And yeah, It's number 3. Number 2, it's Tress, Brandon Sanderson. I love this book so much. It was one of the first books I read this year, actually, back in January. And it's held up throughout the whole year. I mean, it's another one that's like, it's a bunch of things I really love bundled into one book. So really, I think I was bound to love this book. It's a fairy tale, basically. But the main character is kind of like it's almost like the Princess Bride, and I think Sanderson said this himself. It's like the Princess Bride, but what if, once Wesley was captured by pirates, instead of just being like, oh dang, that sucks, sure wish that didn't happen. Like, what if the princess, what if the girl took matters into her own hands and went out to find him, right? And goes on an adventure, and that's what this book is. And it's great. And it's got pirates, it's got dragon. It's got cool world building where there's the oceans are not water. They're like these spores that are super dangerous. If they come in contact with water or liquid, then they kind of different effects happen that are not good. No bueno. Which is really cool. And it's Brandon Sanderson. It's in the Cosmere. It's near and dear to my heart. Tress was great. And I feel pretty confident that even if you're not a Cosmere person, if you haven't read any of the other stuff, this book stands alone just fine. I think it would probably make you interested to check out some other books to see what they are. The art in here is so good. This is the edition that's published by Dragonsteel, which is Brandon's company. And yeah, Tress is great. I'm trying to think if there's any other salient points to make here. Yeah, you got riddles, you got kind of mystery going on. There's an evil sorceress that everyone's afraid of, that that's who we think is captured. The love interest, the Wesley, so to speak, of the book. And yeah, it's a great, you see the character develop. You see Tress go from sort of this kind of just wanting a people pleaser, just kind of meek, quiet, just kind of goes with whatever is thrown at her, but and then she really comes into her own and takes charge of her own life and becomes a positive influence on other people's lives as well, which is great. So yeah, number 2, Tress, check it out. Okay. Number one of the year, guys, it's the Blade itself. It's Joe Abercrombie. It's the pinnacle of what was my shame at having never read any Joe Abercrombie. Okay, shame on me, but also I benefited from it because I got to enjoy this series, this trilogy, for the first time last year, and it changes everything. It's it is so rare to read something that totally changes a genre for you, and this, it just does. It changes. I don't even know why necessarily. It just does. Just the whole fantasy genre. It's. I think Joe Abercrombie described this as his attempt at sort of a Lord of the Rings epic, right? This was his. Obviously much narrower in scope than the Lord of the Rings. I mean, Tolkien is granddaddy Tolkien. Nobody's gonna touch him, but I mean, this just changed. It flips everything around. It just changes everything. It's so good. The characters, Logan Nine Fingers, the Bloody Nine, right? What a cool character. And I mean, say one thing for Joe Abercrombie: the man can write character voice. Every character. I mean, it's so. The main character viewpoints that you're getting, they all have their own unique voice, and the way that he writes it, and the way they think, and the way they talk, and you know exactly whose section it is when you're reading it. Sandan Glokta of His Majesty's Inquisition, right? Sandan Glokta is one of my favorite characters of all time. It's just so good. And I will say, I did the audiobook, and I think the narrator's name is Stephen Pacey. I think that's right. Sorry if it's not. I mean, look it up on Audible. It's I think his name is Stephen Pacey though, and that was just so amazing. That performance is like, it's next level. It's so good. It get like his voices. I say things to my wife all the time now that's like weird quotes and phrases from these books, and particularly in the voices that he uses, and it's just so great. But I mean, you got Baez, the first of the Magi, in here, right? It's like the Gandalf, but like it's like the darker version of Gandalf, right? Where it's like if you had someone who really had that much power and that much control over kind of the world, and you know, like how, like, you know what? It's kind of like The Boys. Isn't that what I haven't really ever watched that show, but I've seen bits of it. Like what if Superman was really in the world, right? Like, would he really be this benevolent, just like, or would it be terrifying? It would be kind of terrifying, right? And that's how this is, right? Like, it's kind of terrifying. You've got the Master Maker. You got all this. The world building's great. Oh my God. Jezel, however you want to say it. Dan Luthor. Yeah, they go on an adventure. You've got like the fat, obese king who's like useless. Talk about a figurehead, right? I mean, we'll stay out of politics, but oh man, it's so good. You've got Bethod, who's kind of this the sort of king of the North, and the Northmen, who's like this barbarian king that's a problem, right? That's got to get fixed. You've got just the idea of the first law and the second law. I don't want to spoil it here. If any of the rest of you are like total heathens and have been under a rock the way I was and haven't read this, like, I don't want to spoil it, because I just thought it, like, when I was reading it, you know, and the first law gets mentioned, I was like, oh, that's like the name of the trilogy. That's cool. And then you hear what the first law is, and they're like, well, what's the second law? And then they say what the second law is, and it's like, oh man, that's crazy. Like, it's just such a, it's just so fun to like find out about the world and find out these things, and like just what those laws are and what they imply for the world itself. And it's like, that's just, it's crazy. It's so good. Seriously, cannot recommend this series enough. I am really looking forward to jumping into the rest of the books that are kind of in this First Law universe. So far I've only read these 3 by Joe Abercrombie, so really looking forward to that in the coming year. Yeah, so there you go. There's number 1, and I kind of cheated, right? My number 1's really like 3 books. So, but you know what? It's my channel. I can do what I want, and that's what I did. Boom. There you go, everybody. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for watching the video. Yeah, really excited for the channel. This year, who knows what I'll put out, what I'll do. It's kind of just a fun side hobby thing for me. So, yeah, I was excited to do this video, a look back at all the books. I've never done something like that before, kind of really looking back and thinking about the books I read over the course of the year. So that was fun to do. And yeah, I don't regret reading any of the books I read. There's certainly some that I'm gonna read again though. And yeah, hopefully you kind of already know what those are just based on the video itself. But yeah, all the lights, the batteries are dying and everything. It's a long one. So thanks for watching, everybody. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.